Hi, and welcome to another exciting episode of the Andre The Beast Crayton Show. Today is an exciting show, and let me explain to you why it is such an exciting show today. Let me start from the beginning. I was debating and having questions in my life. I watched a couple of individual pictures that dealt with NDR, near-death experiences. And I kind of found myself being immersed in these individual stories. And as I got immersed in them, I also found myself asking myself, if I was in this situation, or if you, the audience, was in this situation, and you had a chance to have a near-death experience, and you got to meet the Creator, the one and only, the master of the universe, what would you ask him? What kind of feelings of your life? Not nobody else's life. This is about you, because you may be next to somebody in the crypt or in the morgue, but what would you say to that individual? Would you ask to come back? Would you ask, why did this happen? I began to ask myself these questions. If I was put in that situation, what would I do? Fast forward. I'm watching a podcast, and it was funny how the universe works. It led me to a topic. I didn't pick it out. It was just showed up on my feed. And I watched this hour-long podcast. I know what you're saying, an hour. Yeah, I was that taken by this particular podcast, but not the podcast in general. The guest that was on the podcast and her story. So intrigued that I put it out in the universe that I'm going to meet this remarkable woman. I'm going to forge a friendship with this woman. I'm going to learn what she learned. And I'm going to feel comfortable enough to say, can I share my questions on what I would have asked? And more importantly, what questions did you ask when this happened to you? The universe blessed me with a inbox just when I was giving up all hope. We reached out to each other at the same time. A tear came down my eye because it led me to understand, which I've always known from day one, the universe will put in your path what you asked. Sometimes good, sometimes bad. Sometimes with the bad, you got to learn from it. But with the good, you consider yourself lucky. And today, I'm lucky not only to have developed a beautiful friendship with this woman, but in the process of collaborating an educational and spiritual journey for you, the viewers, in season 4 to help you better understand your purpose. Not religious purposes, and not that, just your purpose, how to ground you. Understanding what grounding means, how to understand the energy force that we all have within ourselves. The force, like the Star Wars thing. Without further ado, I'm going to bring her to the set right now, the one, the only, the enlightenment herself, Miss Virginia Drake. Welcome to the show.
Well, thank you. First of all, that was very touching. You felt it. And, you know, you felt us. And there is 2 people besides me here.
Yeah.
But you had an enlightenment today in us talking. Because when you said energy and grounding, you get it, don't you?
I not only get it, I felt it. I can't really explain the feeling. It was like one of your friends said something that was really funny. She said, "You're carrying the world on your shoulders," and I said, "I'm Atlas." and it can be a stressful
Yes.
journey to carry
And
the
it
world
was all
on your shoulders.
you. Yeah.
Shoulders,
Yeah.
knees, the whole 9 yards. But before we get into my journey, tell the viewers a little bit about you before we get into the energy, the grounding, and just your journey in general.
Well, my journey really started with my mother when I was pregnant in her womb, and I was 7.5 months in, and she birthed me, and I had been a miscarriage, basically. That's what they thought. And my mother always told me, she said, you are only 1.7 pounds, and you feel it in my hand. And I could see those kind of things didn't register, those
Right.
things. And I remember I was always in the clouds. I was a lot more, freer about my life. They didn't think I was very smart because I'm dyslexic. So I really did have some trouble with school and all of that. But I was really, really smart. But I was smart on another level up here when I found out that after I had a real NDE, or a near-death experience, in 1998, it took me out there and showed me how smart I was. Because
Right.
I could see things in the universe that there's no way I would ever learn in a college or in a school. I was taught basically by the higher consciousness of God. But when you go back in there, I look at all of the experiences I've had to go through to get here. And getting here is the most important thing, because right now, I know who I am. I'm 72 years old. I should have gone through a lot of, I went through a lot of crazy stuff, but I'm so grateful to do this work. And I see people healed all the time doing this, simply just by going in and recognizing who they really are within. And we've talked before. I said, we've been programmed.
Right. Right.
And when I started realizing all these programmings that, thought about who I was, I realized that's not who I am. And, I have clients all over the world, and they want to know the same thing. What's my purpose? You know what your purpose is to find out who you are.
Right.
That's all you need to know is that. And it's so simple. And they're so been trained programming-wise that everything has to be more complex. It's not. It's very simple.
What was your life like as a child? Because you brought up some vital points. Society.
Yes.
The wizard. Let's call it the wizard.
Okay.
In his system, deemed you inability to learn certain things. We found that now that's not true. But what was it like growing up in your household with your mom, your dad? You got brothers and sisters?
No, I'm an only child.
You're spoiled.
Yeah, well, not really, because my father died when I was 16, and I watched him from the age of 11 die in cancer. And in the 1960s, when that was cancer, people were afraid of cancer. They thought they wouldn't let anybody come to my house, or I couldn't go to their house, because they thought cancer could be caught, just like a disease, like a virus.
Right.
But they did call my father cancer a virus. They did.
Right.
And when I look back at that, and I was mad about it for a long time, that I didn't really get to enjoy my life as a child, because I was raised an only child. I was raised as an adult, never raised like a child. And but when I got to go through my near-death experience, and Spirit came back and said, this is why you had to learn this. You had to have these experiences to be able to do what you're doing now. And it made perfectly good sense. I did not feel like a victim anymore. I knew, and we have been victimized so badly about everything. And you flip that upside down, that's when you see the Spirit in you, why you had to experience all that you had to experience to the detail, so you would be even better now.
You say victim. That's a
big word
that's a
for
big
everybody.
word.
Yeah.
But when you say victim, you recognize that you was a victim at a young age
Oh, I was molested at the age of 7
by a family member.
By a family member, and
Why do you think that's so widespread? Because I've had other individuals on the show, numerous guests, that suffered the same fate. Why do you think that's so rampant?
Well, because it's a thing that's been hidden. It's always in the families because I was a psychiatric social worker, and I remember a lot of that was because it's a secret. Everybody in their family, when they would bring it up that somebody had been molested, they said, we knew that, but it was family. You don't ever bring up about family stuff. That you don't air your dirty laundry because everybody does that. I mean, I remember when I didn't tell my mother and father ever that I'd been molested. I didn't really understand the molestation until after I had had my near-death experience, and I went back into that state of mind, what had happened, and I wanted to find out, did I really get raped? Did I really get molested? And really what that guy did is he was a friend of the family, and he just took my pants down and take his penis, and he just kind of moved. He said, "One day you're going to have to do that." Well, what it did, it shocked the frontal lobe, and it does. What happens? It knocks it down. It's just like this right here is very important. So when it gets stunned or hit, it stops. So children that have been molested, they stop growing right there. And emotionally. So then the next thing is they're going to have, when they get adults, they could do the same thing because that's what they're familiar with. A lot about it is familiarity. It's, it's okay. That's what goes on in my neighborhood or in my family. It's not okay. We didn't realize this was so rampant, like you said, until it started surfacing up. That's been going on for ages and ages. But nobody sat around and talked about it. Now it's being raised up to be talked about, just like trafficking humans and all of that. That's all now surfacing up. Don't you think that is in the higher spirit, bringing it up? Let's look at it, not be afraid of it anymore. And when I went through my molestation, it really released me because my whole body resonated and I could feel it. And you've experienced that today. That you had that, you said, "Oh my God!" Well, that's because that was lodged in my body since I've been a 7-year-old, and you're carrying it. So then everything that you put in, it pushes it down even deeper, but it pads on it like layers. So when people are so layered up, they don't even know where to begin. That's why they get depressed. That's why they want to die. That's why they want to commit suicide, because it's so overwhelming and they don't have any words to be able to express it. And that's what we need to do is bring them in, take them to the event. A lot of times when I was working with women that had been raped, and I've been almost raped 3 times, I take them to that. And the first thing they do is, "No, I don't want to go in there." I said, "You got to, because we got to release it physically. You've been to therapy. Therapy will not touch this because this is a spiritual experience. You have maimed and you tainted your soul with that experience. And now you're going to carry it. And you're the victim, but you're going to carry it as though you were the one that did it." So this is a bigger deal, and this is why a lot of things that's going on right now in the world as it is people are starting to wake up to this surfacing up. I mean, we've had people in, or I've had people in, that all of a sudden they didn't even realize that they had a near-death experience, or stuff is coming up and then they want to know. Or I think I said on one of the videos, I said, about I could see the red eyes. They would come out of my closet. I saw demons when I was a little girl. I didn't see angels. I saw demons.
Did you share this stuff with let's go back one more. You mentioned your father, God rest his soul. Did he die from, did your father work in the coal mines because you're from Kentucky?
No. My father was a magazine salesman in 1960s. He would go to Eastern Kentucky. He would barter sometimes with they loved going up in Eastern, Kentucky. They would like magazines.
What's Eastern Kentucky? Is that Lexington area?
No, it's Eastern Kentucky is going to be up in the mountains.
Oh.
He would go up in the mountains. Now, let me tell you, those people in the mountains, they're not very nice. They're scared of a lot of people. They don't like a lot of people. My father took, when he would go in, he was the man that had all the magazines. And they would barter with him with antiques. He traveled. My father would come in, go out on Monday and not come back on Friday, except on Friday.
Why were the people scared? Mountain people?
Well, because you got to go back to the history where that was. They were carpetbaggers there. That was New Yorkers. Everybody. They tried to steal a lot of things from them. They're a very closed society. I used to go up to Eastern Kentucky and teach. So they had to like you. If they didn't like you, you're never going to make it. I can tell
What
you
do you mean you're never going to make it?
You'll never make it to them or anything, because UK did this. University of Kentucky took a whole lot of young interns because they wanted to find out how those people were learning to do all those herbs. I mean, they were doing ginseng. Because they knew it way before everybody else. So they sent their young interns in, and they wouldn't let them talk to them. They wouldn't come near them. They would try to get in, and they wouldn't. They shunned them. They asked them to leave. They're very close society. And I understand why, because they have been tampered with many times, and they've been lied to, about their land. And then look at the coal mines, what they did to them. I mean, come on. These people don't trust. It's not white people or black people. They just don't trust people. Mm-hmm. So they were very close, and my father became very, they loved him. So he was making a lot of money off the subscriptions with these people because they loved it.
Your mom, what was your relationship like with your mom? You mentioned something else, too.
Oh, she was tough. She was tough.
Yeah, how did she react when you talked about, at a young age, seeing...
My father after he died?
Not even your father. We're talking about the red people or the green-eyed people.
I never told them because they wouldn't believe me anyway. I had an emotional breakdown when I was 16, and I sat and it felt like a box. And I was catatonic. I mean, they could take my hand and put it there, put it back down. I wouldn't say anything. I had a total breakdown through watching my father dying.
Your father died?
Yeah, to watch him die like that. Oh, they took his eye out, the palate of his mouth, the back of some of his brain. I sat and watched this man go through that. No child should ever have to witness that with their father. And I get very bitter. I remember when I was at UK and my dad was there, and I screamed. I said, somebody needs to help us. This is when I was all about, he was dying, and we didn't know how to do it. They didn't talk about dying in the 60s. That was not something you talked about. And I remember yelling at a nurse. I said, you need to help us. And they would, even doctors, no. And I remember going in to talk to my dad, and I said to him, now this is a man, he was almost 200 pounds. By the time he died, he was almost I think he was 80 pounds.
Wow, that's small.
No eye, no palate in his mouth. And I had to clean that out when I was young because my mother had to go back to work. So I had to clean up he was so sad. And one day he forgot to put his eye patch on, and I could see through his skull.
Sound like you had a lot to do as a child.
I did. And we fought like cats and dogs, my father and I did, my mother, because we were like kids in a way, but he was also going through a process that I didn't understand. When you said somebody's dying, and I watched him die, basically, and I remember he was laying in the bed at the house, and he looked at me and he said, and he's going to call me Jenny, because you heard me as Virginia, but I'm Jenny, and he said, Jenny, hell is here on earth. And I remember him saying that very distinctly. And I thought, now I was going to church. I had to go to church. My mom and dad didn't go to church. I went to church.
Ain't that crazy? How did you feel about that now that you look at that?
Now that I look back, I was pissed. I was real pissed out because I got kicked out of the Baptist church.
What did you do?
Because they said, I'm 13 years old, and I'm sitting in there. And I've been there since I've been a little girl. And they said, drinking is okay. Now, I've been a Baptist. a Washington Baptist. And you can't drink, you can't dance, you can't gamble, you can't. And one of my teachers said, because she's an alcoholic. And we all knew she was an alcoholic because it's a small town. Everybody knew her. And she said, well, a little alcohol doesn't hurt. Okay, mouth back here at 13 says, wait a minute. That's not what I was trained in. I was really kind of pissed. I thought, how can you be, it's okay for you, but we can't have that? And all I could think about Baptist is, all I was worried about, I was going to go to hell. I never saw God. I just knew if I don't do right, I'm going to hell. And I thought, you can't win in this church because you just can't win. So I became a Catholic because my father became a Catholic because that was the only person that would come to service my father in ministry is a priest. And this guy was not afraid of dying, getting cancer, whatever. And I remember as a young girl saying, I want to follow that man. He's not afraid. Now, there wasn't a minister that would come, any of the ministers would come. And that's when that's why I became a Catholic, is because of my dad.
How long did you keep the silence of the Lamb, of these entities that you saw as a child? I mean, because you're dealing with your father, your mom, your young age, but you just shared something that was really interesting. You saw
The red eyes.
the red eyes. What exactly is the red eyes, and how long did you keep that concealed?
Okay. I told my mom and dad I was scared. They knew I always had nightmares.
Right.
But when that closet door would open, I'd see it. I mean, and I'm shocked I
You see
wasn't.
it or it?
No, it wasn't it. It was a shadow with red eyes. I mean, I saw it as plain as day. And also it has reptilian hands, because I got really sick as a little girl, and it would hold my hand when I'm sick.
Excuse me?
Yeah, it did. I mean, I looked down one time and it was a reptilian hand. But also I've seen the Manuses. I mean, they look like prayer Manuses. I mean, I could see all of
these?
that.
People are going to be like, what the hell is she talking about?
But you'll find out later is because a lot of those are put in out of fear. Because you don't have, I saw a lot of movies. When my dad would come in for the weekend, they'd send me to the theater. I shouldn't be going to some of those movies. And so what do? Is you take it in, and then you can create anything.
Recreate it.
Yeah, but now go look at some of the movies like Monster Inc. They're talking about doorways and people coming through closets.
You're right. Oh yeah, man, you're right. I saw Monsters Inc.
Yes, and that's when I said, my God, it is in doorways, and it is because they knew that the subconscious mind will go whatever. If it doesn't have an understanding, it just will make it up. So you only have what you have been given to look at.
How did you adjust to this phenomenon?
When I came back to my house when I was 51 years old, to the house, and I sat in my own bedroom, and I said, bring it in. I want to know where you are and what it is. Because I used to get woken up going, Jenny. And I look around, because I was terrified. And when you're no longer in fear, this is exactly what it said to me. When you come from fear, we look like demons. When you come from love, we look like angels. Make a choice.
You need to say that again, because I don't think they heard you.
Okay. When you come from demons or fear, traumatized you'll see demons. But when you come from love, you see angels. It's all in a state of mind. When everybody would really wake up to the fact, everything has been created for you to go either to fear or love. There's only two emotions.
It's almost like that Tom Hanks, Angels and Demons.
Absolutely. That's why I almost got to meet that author.
It took me a while to watch that, and I was like, okay, at the end, he's saying you create your own heaven and hell.
Yep, your own reality.
Your own reality.
Yeah, that's the matrix. See, now, when you get out of the matrix, what you just experienced in here today.
We gonna go there yet. We're gonna keep talking about you.
Yeah, because that's exactly. But you got to understand, there is a true reality, and you witnessed it. Yeah. There are two worlds. You saw them today.
Yeah, it was.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So let's keep going. So you eventually get older, and you're very educated. You also, if I'm not mistaken, work with NASA or the space
no.
engineering department or something?
No. I've got a psychiatric social work degree, and I've got a graduate degree in teaching.
Okay.
Yeah, no. That would be nice, but they don't want to be in NASA.
When you was teaching, and based on the stuff that you went through, how was that? Because let's get real, you can't go through the things that you went through and see things coming through your doors.
Yeah, you can.
And not
Especially if you've got a child that's really imaginative, because I work with children.
Well, not saying not seeing, but you seen it, but you still got to go on. That's something I would like constantly have in the back of my mind and want to explore deeper. Like, why is this happening, or where did they come from?
No, because when you first wake up as a little girl, you're terrified, absolutely terrified. You're traumatized by it, and you can't tell anybody because everybody thinks you're crazy. And and I've already had a near-death experience as a child coming in, and then I drowned twice when I was 16 and 11. And so when you get out of these out-of-body experiences and these near-death experiences, you have a different reality. So I've met outside of my reality as well as in my reality, and there was nobody, no teacher there. So you're just kind of hanging in, just hanging out because you don't even know what to do. So you hide it, you go down and you push it away so you will not. That's why people are depressed. They're pushing things down they don't want to experience. But they've already experienced it because it's already in you. Everything that's happened to you, it's already registered in your body.
Let's talk about that first experience at 11 or 11.
When my near-death experience with
at 11 years old, like.
Yeah, I was in a lifeguard class to be a lifeguard. And we were being a victim, you're trying to drown, and I was acting like I was drowning, however.
Oh, you was role modeling.
Yeah, I was role modeling, but it went over my head because there was it was a two-piece bathing suit back then in the 60s, and it came over my head, and then I'm drowning, I can't get back up, and they're thinking I'm struggling, and finally the instructor said, "Somebody get her up," and I just collapsed. I was down. I was going down. And as I'm going down, I thought, my mother is going to get really pissed. They've killed me here in this pool, and I'm supposed to be doing something pretty good. And I mean, you think these things.
Right.
And so when they pulled me up, during that process, I had met the pearly gates, and they were like mother of pearl. And the gates came in like this and opened up like that. And when I was getting ready to walk in, I said, "No, not your time." And when I came up, when they had gotten me up out of the water, I came straight up. I said, "I saw the pearly gates. I saw the pearly gates." And I have a really good friend that was in that with me. And they went, "Okay, no." And we were talking about it. She said, "That was awful. We didn't even realize how big that was for you."
Yeah. How old were you again? 11?
11.
This may sound stupid, but I got to ask.
Okay.
What was that feeling like at 11 years old? Did you even have any?
There was no fear.
Did you even know that you had left your body?
Yeah, I knew that I was drowning. I knew that I was going. I knew
And your only thing was, my mom's gonna be pissed.
Yeah, exactly. It's the same thing, because when it happened to me when I was 16, my cousin, we skipped school. I was a
Right.
freshman, he was a senior. And he was staying with us so he could do his senior year because his family they came up here to Indiana. But so I remember they threw me in the lake, into the Kentucky River. Now, I'm an excellent swimmer, yes, but they threw a wool blanket on top of me and it absorbed, and I went straight down. Now, they're thinking, it could have been seconds, because when you cross over, you go out of your body, there's no time. Time does not exist. Time was given in here in sections to keep us in alignment to where they want us to go, okay?
The system.
Yeah, it's a system, or the matrix, whatever. Keeps you into that digital because they want you in that matrix to follow the rules. And so when you're out of it, you don't have any rules.
At 16 years old and this happens, and you start to ascend.
No, I'm sending down.
You're going
and I
down,
knew I'm
but
going down.
You see yourself going up though later, right?
No.
You keep going down?
I keep going down, and why I'm saying it is, I said, my mother's going to hate Carol. And she's going to kill him.
You thinking some crazy stuff as you're dying. You know that, right?
But you do think crazy things. This is what I try to explain to people. You're not thinking about dying. It's like, oh, man, I'm going out, and boy, he's going to get it. My mother's going to be mad at him. And what it was, I don't even know if it was out there 15 or 16 seconds. I don't know. There's no time. But what it was going down, there was these beautiful lights, shimmering lights, and they were talking to me. They were like twinkling and everything. And they said, we're going to, then I could look up to the surface of the water, and I'm thinking, I am really far down in the river. How am I going to get up there? And these beautiful lights came up underneath my feet. Now, I've still got a blanket. How could I even see that? And it was like it ripped the blanket off of me, and they said, we're going to give you a push. And their lights were beautiful. They pushed me up, and I went flying up. And I came back up and I went, and Kurt, my cousin, said, where have you been? And I thought, where have I been? I had no idea, and that's where I know that I had gone out of my body, because it could have been a near-death experience or an out-of-body experience. But
so you had two encounters, no matter how you look at it, and from two different ages, and really not that far apart, a 5-year span between the two. How do you... And on top of that, you're seeing the red eyes. How in the heck are you navigating?
Not well. You can't. You push it. It's called push it back. This is why you get disease. This is what you do, is you put it all around.
You kept all the internal trauma inside.
Everything, and then you get sick.
Okay.
Okay, and I got sick through the motions more than anything. I got really upset about a lot of things. I beat my dog. I love my dog, Tammy, and I would get angry and beat her. And then I remember I stopped and I thought, why am I so angry? And my dog talked to me, because I'm an animal communicator. So I started communicating with my animals, because that was my friends.
What did your dog say to you?
Tammy was beautiful. She was a cocker. She turned around, and you could see that. It makes me kind of cry. Whew. She got real teary-eyed, and she said, you beat me. Don't do any more for you. Don't beat yourself up anymore. I can take it. That's exactly what she said of a little girl, probably 9 years old. And that dog got poisoned and almost killed, and died. And it destroyed me, because that was my friends. I had animals. I had cats, dogs, and they did it because they thought it was, keeping me entertained, and they did. But I could talk to them, and I've always been able to do that. I thought everybody
When you say
could do
talk to the animals, let me explain to you where I'm going with this. The series that me and you are going to work on is more so saying what the people may be afraid to say. Now, when you say talking to the animals, give me an idea of exactly what's that like and what they say to you.
Well, they talk just like we did. So do horses.
Really?
They talk. Yeah, they talk just. Well, yeah, because that's where I started out, as an animal communicator first. I mean, farmers knew that my next door neighbors were veterinarians when I was 12 years old. Mm-hmm. They called my mother and said, can Jenny come over? We've got a dog. And see, they were just learning. So both of them had their own vet in their house. And they would say, can Jenny come over there? She can calm the dogs. They knew, well, in fact, one of the vets asked me to become a veterinarian. And he said, I'll pay everything to get you there. But I had just gotten married. And I said, no, David, I don't want to go back to school. I'd already done it. And he said, you are the best. I even did, horses, and we go into the, start.
So it's funny. Me and you talk pretty much all the time. And I shared this with you. Hollywood has a way of telling us what's really going on. Mm-hmm. So you was the original Dr. Doolittle.
Pretty much, I'd say. But I think there's a lot of us like that. There's a lot of people like me that can do that.
But are scared that they may be justized or...
Well, and that's true, because when you start really opening up to and I don't call them gifts, because I think everybody can do this. I'm sorry, but there's no such thing as gifts. It's how you're going to use those abilities. Those are real natural abilities, and that's why people are wanting to talk to me, because it's what Jesus told us, isn't it?
I'm going to ask the questions that I know people are going to ask.
Okay. Ask.
What the heck what's one of the things that animals will say to you as they go to their daily day life and see us as humans? Do they look at us like,
Oh, they think we're stupid.
Yeah, they think I always wondered that.
No, they think we're pretty stupid because first of all, we look like we're on the, we're the ones that are the most. Do you see any trees going to the bank? Do you see any squirrels going into the bank? Who's doing all the hard work? Us. You need, I remember I had to go into a barn because a horse had been burnt so severely. It was the only horse that survived the barn burn. And I came in, first it was a rooster that told me, because the chickens and roosters are very aware. And the rooster said, you got to go down there and talk to the horse. You got to go down there and talk to the horse. I thought, okay. So I just go down, and I walked right over, and I said, I want to know who did this. And he told me. He told me it was the manager, showed me how it was. I went out of the barn, went to the woman that owned the horse at the time. I said, this is what it is, and they arrested him.
Really?
Yeah, they can tell you. If you're listening. Yes, and he was burnt badly. He didn't make it, but he did give the message. And they said they followed through. Yeah.
You have an extraordinary gift. You've been blessed with that.
That's not a gift. Everyone has that.
Okay. Everyone has it, but
some people continue, just like a piano.
Right.
Everybody might be able to play the piano, but not everybody might be the biggest, the most best pianist. I don't know.
Did you keep all this? Did you keep this inside as well,
Yes.
secretive? Why?
Because my mother told me, in the 60s, when I saw my father after he died, I think he was about, he was under the ground maybe 2 weeks or 3 weeks. And I'm sitting at the house, watching TV, and I heard the crack. That my father was pretty, heavy man, but there was this little crack, and I knew it was my daddy, because that's how you learned your words. You listen. Oh my God, Dad's coming. Daddy's coming. And I looked down the hallway, and he walked right by, and I went, oh my God. I got really scared. I called my mother at work. She was at work at night. I said, Mother, Daddy has just walked through there. Don't you tell anybody. Don't you tell anybody. If you tell anybody, they'll take you out in a straitjacket. This is exactly. And why I know that? Because they took my father out with a straitjacket when he was brain damaged. And he almost killed my mother and I one night. They didn't give him the right drugs. They took him to our house from the VA and did not give him a pill or something to calm him down. And he almost killed us. And we ended up in the emergency room, and they took him out in a straitjacket.
Your mother believed you then.
My mother could do the same thing that I could. But
Get the hell out of here.
Yeah, she was very much like me, but she was.
Did she share that with you?
Oh yeah, very briefly. But her sister and her daughters could do the same thing, but they wouldn't do it because they thought it was the devil. It was bad.
So your mother, even though she had these abilities, she still recognized that you lived in a world that can take those things and use them against you and put you in a straitjacket and
think I was
label
crazy.
you. I think you was
I
crazy.
was really crazy. She wasn't going to let me in the 60s. She didn't want her daughter to, be crazy. And this is a small town.
You get married.
What?
You get married.
Okay.
Life goes on. You get married. You're still keeping this between yourself and your mom, but you're married.
But my husband at the time had a gift too.
Okay.
He had abilities. He's the one who won the lottery, and he dreamt it. He could dream. He was a psychic dreamer, but he was also a narcissist. So he knew how to play in my field, but be nasty about it.
Give me an example of that.
I always thought my husband really loved me, but what it was is he liked controlling me.
How old were you when you got married, Virginia?
22.
You was young.
Yeah, I was young, but stupid.
Young.
But I was trying to get out of my house because my mother was very controlling, and I turned right around and married my mother. That's what it feels like. I didn't know that he was that sick because when I found out later, after almost 27 years of the marriage, I found out he'd been molested by a priest. And the dead priest, is what told me what happened when I had my near-death experience in 1998. In fact, I was sitting on the toilet, and he came through my bathroom, and I thought, who are you? I'd seen pictures of this man, and they adored him. He was wonderful.
Who adored him?
His family, Ron, he was a Catholic priest. That was a big deal.
But nobody knew that this priest did this to your husband?
No, they didn't know anything about it. Ron hadn't even told me. The priest is what told me. And I said, I'm not, he said, I can't move on because Ron has not forgiven me. I said, oh no, I know how this works. You had better go to God, no matter, because nobody's going to forgive you, but you forgive yourself. You better go to the Holy Spirit and find out.
Let's go back a minute. You said you're in the ladies' room, and this entity.
No, it wasn't an entity. It was a priest.
How did you know he was a priest?
Because he looked like a priest. He walked through the side of the. He walked through the door. Honey, then you're working in this kind of energy. Shit like that happens all the time.
We're gonna get into the deeper realms of energy as we continue to talk with Virginia Drake and stuff. But when you talk about that energy, you definitely had the ability to do it. But
I'm a seer.
Why did this priest come to you?
Because he needed to be forgiven. He wanted my husband to forgive him for what he had done to him. And I turned around and
said... So he died.
Oh, yeah, he was
recently
dead.
And then go...
No, he wasn't recently dead. He'd been dead for quite a while, obviously. But he came because he found somebody that he could talk to because I could see him.
Oh, it's almost like that movie Medium.
Yeah, well,
not Medium. What's it called?
Yeah,
Ghost.
Ghost.
You got to find somebody that can look... Oh.
Yeah, well, because I can see. I'm a seer. I can see ghosts behind you. I started out as ghost hunter for a long, long time because I can see ghosts.
So he had been really
dead,
but stuck, but
and found somebody, the light that could get him back into the grace of God.
The thing about it is, if he's willing to all of a sudden come with these true confessions from the grave, what about the other people? Because this couldn't have been a one-time event that happened. So as far as you know, I know you know, did he have to go and make amends with the other people?
Don't know. I just told him, you need to go up there and you need to address this, because the God that I've met through all of this is a forgiving God. Mm-hmm. He had to witness to God what he had done. He had to feel it. Because when you don't have a body, you feel it through the soul of yourself. It's not like a physical body.
Know thyself?
Yeah, know thyself. And he had to release himself to be released freely to go home. You're never going to be thrown out. You got to witness the fact that what you had done was against yourself.
So this is just hypothetically. So this guy is just walking around soullessness.
Pretty much.
So he didn't get a chance. Let me rephrase this. Thank you. He created his own heaven and hell.
Yes, he did.
And his hell was the fact that he had molested your husband.
Yes. But he was not the only one. That he'd done many people. We sued the Catholic Church in Louisville, Kentucky, and won. Over 248 people were on that lawsuit. And Ron knew it better because his mother had kept every picture of the priest and him at the hotels. That not because they were just like they were there. He had all of the documentation, and they couldn't get out of it.
Like, why was a priest taking a young boy to a hotel?
Because in the 60s that was a big deal. That a priest wanted to be with their son, and they were poor from Louisville, so they did it all the time. And Ron was a very weak young man. He was tiny, and he was getting beat up. So the priest groomed him and prepared him. He was an altar boy.
How did that affect your marriage? Because now you're dealing with an individual that's the same as your mom, but now you realize from a encounter with the guy that molested him that here's your husband that's been truly traumatized.
Well, because thank God I was a psychiatric social worker, thank I knew all of it. But what it was is that I didn't know it at all. Ron had never said anything, ever. So I'm sitting there, and I said, because I'd already had an experience from 1998, that was the next year after my NDE, And it was like everything was coming in. I mean, I was laying down in my body and I was going out of my body and going out and retrieving things, bringing it back in to learn what the hell happened to me. How did I get the opportunity to find out the truth within me? It was enlightenment. It was like seeing things that I never, and then it gave me a different perspective on what really, I was not a victim. I was learning to be who I am today, because that's what I do, is I help people cross over. I help people heal, and it's all through the emotions, fear, love.
It's so funny that you said that. I was telling you the good news that we have the writer of the movie The Shack that is coming on to the podcast, and he shared almost word verbatim what you just said about who's at fault,
Yeah.
and it's really
There's no fault.
there's no fault. We even though it may seem like something bad has happened, it's designed.
Yes, it is.
The energy force is designed to amplify you to another level, but then learn from it.
Absolutely.
To understand and change the vibrational frequency that we all have. When you started to, let me go back a minute. You get married, you recognize that he has.
Well, I was married for 7 years before I had children. They told me I couldn't have children. And then I became pregnant twice, which they never thought
With
I
the
could.
guy that had the encounter with the priest.
No, when I married Ron, I was married for 7 years without, we lived, as long as we were really cool with each other, no kids, we made a lot of money. We did really well. We created, we were fixing up houses in the 70s, because I got married in 1974. We were flipping houses and making money before anybody else was doing it, and we were very good. We had our own wallpapering company, we had our own asphalt company, and we built.
Don't you wish they had HGTV back then?
Yeah, because Ron and I were very good at it,
Right.
And we had done well. But when we got the children is when it all fell apart.
Why?
Because he wanted more power and control over the kids, and he thought I was blonde-headed, really blonde. I was pretty at one time. And, I was a trophy wife. I made him look good. But he would only give me, and he always made me feel like I was in charge, but I wasn't. He had a chain, and he jerked me like that. You'd feel the physical, it wasn't physical, it was emotional. And he'd set me down, you don't talk like that, it was horrible. It was like being with my mother. And then he would down me, like, you're not very smart. I used to think he was brilliant, to be honest. But that was because I gave him a lot of power. When you give somebody power, then you're powerless. So he used it a lot. He was very narcissistic. He would say mean things. And I would just think I was awful. And then when I had my near-death experience, that changed.
Explain what happened there.
Because I became empowered of my own self. And I had a Jesus experience. I had Archangel Michael experience. I've had experiences beyond, and they were telling me, they said, you are a great light, and you are holding your light back for him. He is not the controller. Only God is. And he's not God to you. And I remember that very well. And that's when hell broke loose in my house with my family, because I was no longer following the rule of their life. And I wrote a presentation, my first presentation, because I'm a motivational speaker. And I was laying in a meditation, and it was showing me, said, the tribe, and everybody has a tribe. When you go in, your family is a tribe. Mm-hmm. That means there's going to be a chief, there's going to be this, and everybody has their position. My position, I was not a mother. I was a sibling with my children. So they thought they were equalized to me. So they could say anything they want to say to me as long as Daddy could handle it. And I was like horrified. And I remember thinking, I'm stuck. So this beautiful moment came in and said, get off of and stop the merry-go-round. I went off. That's what it felt like. I was riding around a merry-go-round. And my family said, "Stay in there. You sit down. You don't. You're a bitch." Whatever. I mean, it was horrible. And I remember this voice said, "Jump off. Just jump off." And I remember I jumped off, and I turned around, and they're going, "Get back in here. What's the matter with you?" And I thought, I am not going back. And that was my first presentation. A person called me for $1,000. I had just said, I want to be a motivational speaker to teach people this, what I just learned. And that's how I started.
Hold that thought. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to come back with more of Virginia Drake, who came all the way from Kentucky to spend the weekend on the Andre The Beast Crayton show. We're going to hear all kind of remarkable stories of her journey. And more importantly, as we stick around, we're going to learn how her and her partners took me to another level of energy. That and more on the next Andre The Beast Crayton show.